Hello, my name is Kari Hautamäki from the Qt company, and today I'm going to tell you how to migrate to Qt6. And I will be at the speakers lounge after this talk, so we can talk more and you can present your questions. So the agenda today will be such that I will tell you what is the migration path to Qt6, and then I will explain what are the major modules in Qt6 and what are the tools that we are supporting at the Qt6 at the moment. And then last, there are a little bit more technical part about highlights of some of the bigger technology changes in modules and some new technologies that we have in Qt6. So first, the motivation to move to Qt6. So if you still are in Qt5, it might be tempting to go to Qt6 because we have more QML advances coming up into Qt6, and already there are some new features available. And then there are also new bindings in C++ side that you can use in Qt6, and then completely new rendering hardware interface that I will also touch a little bit in this talk. And then quick 2D and 3D, they have been unified already in Qt5.15, but then it's more deeper level in Qt6. So then you will benefit for the same scene graph approach in quick 2D and 3D. And also there are some concurrent improvements in Qt6 that were not available in Qt5. And also as Qt6 requires C++17 compiler, you can take a benefit of such features in Qt6. So if you happen to be now already in Qt5, some version, and you want to move to Qt6, the easiest path is such that you will first go to Qt5.15. So that is the easiest stepping stone from Qt5 world to Qt6. And when you have done that, you will need to check that is your tooling in your platform, is it something that's supported in Qt6? And then when you have everything set so that you can migrate to Qt6, then next thing is to actually port your application to Qt6. And then after you have done your porting, you should check that everything works as expected. There shouldn't be any big changes expected in Qt6, but for example, in graphics, there are some changes in graphics side, so that might have some visual effect on your application. And then when everything is fine, you can start using actually the Qt6 features for your application. So if you happen to be in some Qt5 version that is earlier than 5.15, it's easiest first to migrate to 5.15, as the step from Qt5 to Qt6 is then the smallest one. And then the good thing is that the 5.15 is already an LTS version, so it is a good move to go to the 5.15, even though if you wouldn't be for some reason able to go to Qt6, you still have the LTS support for 1.5 years for the 5.15, and then you have time to prepare your application for Qt6. And then there are some features that are not supported in Qt6 that are in Qt5.15. You should already migrate away from such features while you are in 5.15, so you can change those deprecated warnings as errors, so you will be easy to see that if you are using some features that are not available in Qt6. So when you are done with those warnings, in principle, your application should be able to compile to Qt6. So this is the high-level view of the supported modules in Qt6.2. So in overall and high level, all the modules that are already in 5.15, they are supported in Qt6. There are some minor deviations compared to the versions. For example, the widgets and data visualization, they are only supporting OpenGL, but it's not in big picture, everything is as they are in 5.15. The biggest deviation there is that there are a couple of modules that are not supported in Qt6.2, like location, PDF, and speech. These are not ported at the moment, and then there are no concrete plans at the moment to do the porting. So it depends on the need from customers. That is there need for porting to Qt6 for this. So if you have a need for this, you should contact us and describe your problem so we can talk together that is there some other way to come around with these problems, or is it actually worthwhile to actually port these modules to Qt6. And then there are some new platforms already available for Qt6, like Apple Silicon, which were not available in Qt5.15, and Yocto version, for example, has been updated. But otherwise, all the platforms that were already in Qt5, they are already also supported in Qt6. And in contrary to Qt5, not all of the modules, they are packed together with the standard installation with Qt6. Well, some of the modules, they are additional modules. So you have the core installation that is marked in green here, and then with lighter green, there are some additional modules that you can opt in to install if you need those. So this has the benefit that your binary installation doesn't come that big if you don't need these certain modules in your system. The previous slides there were the generic Qt features that we have, but then there are some industry segment specific things, like for industry automation. For that segment, all of that features that were modules that were there, they are already supported. They are add-on modules in Qt 6.2. And then Qt Automotive, then application manager, and then the Qt interface framework, they are supported in Qt 6.2. The interface framework was known as Qt5i earlier. It has the name change. But then there is also, for the automotive, there is a new module called Qt Android Automotive, which provides an integration of the car APIs from Google. And then some of these modules like deployment server and Neptune UI, they are not available in Qt 6.2. And depending on the need, they might be ported later on for Qt 6.2. And in the embedded world, all the reference implementations that are available in Qt5 for device creation, they are already in Qt 6.2. And when you want to create your own Yocto build for Qt, it's relatively straightforward. You only need to replace the name of these recipes from Meta Qt5 to Meta Qt6. And then, depending on the build system you're using, either use Qt6, Qmake, or CMake. Other than that, there shouldn't be any big changes. And then the Qt for MCU, everything that has been already done in Qt5 is supported in Qt6. And the focus on the development is now on Qt6. And also, we have the Qt for Python supporting Qt6. So everything that is supported in Qt C++ version, it's also supported in Python. And then also the later versions should be already coming with the support for Qt5 whenever there is a support for in the standard Qt. And the only limitation at the moment is such that the Apple Silicon is not supported for Python in Qt 6.2. And if you are using Python, then the migration to Qt 6 should be straightforward. You only need to change the import in your Python code from PySide 2 to PySide 6. And then are the platforms that we require and support. So the host platforms, the biggest requirement there is that it has the development platforms needs to have C++17 support. So then they are the most modern Windows, and Linux, and Mac platforms that have that support, so you can use those for development. And then for the targets, there are the list of those target platforms that we have at the moment, and also including, of course, the development hosts. And this is the official list of the supported platform. If you happen to have some other platform, they might work for Qt 6, but they are not officially supported. So you can contact us or try yourself about compiling or using Qt on that platform. But only the biggest requirement is, again, that you need to have the C++17. And then the build system for Qt 6 is CMake. That's the official one. But still, the QMake is supported. So from the migration perspective, you don't have to do anything specific. You can still continue using QMake if you want, but it's advisable to go to CMake, as later on all the new features will be only available in CMake, and they won't be implemented for the QMake system. And then Qt Creator has supported Qt 6 features already for quite a while, from version 4.14. So you should be covered already on that sense. And then Qt Creator have these lazy checks which will tell you if you're using some features which are not supported in Qt 6, or if they are potentially problematic in Qt 6. And the Design Studio, it already supports Qt 6.2 features in the version 2.2. And then from the quality assurance perspective, the Squish and Cocoa tools, they have a technology preview support for Qt 6.2 version at the moment, and later on the support will be improved. So also there is some functionality that has been removed from Qt 6. So this is the things that you need to pay attention when you're migrating to Qt 6. First of all, some of the platforms have been dropped, like Windows 7 and 8. These are so old that they are not even supported anymore, so it's not practical to support them in Qt either. Also, 32-bit binaries are not that much used anymore. And also Apple Watch OS and tvOS has not been used that much, so they are not supported anymore. And then there is the list of removed modules which are not supported anymore. They have part of these have been already deprecated in Qt 5, and now they have been finally removed. So I will show later how you can overcome if you are using these modules in your application. So if you happen to be still using Quick 1 controls, you could migrate to the version 2 of the controls. They are They support basically all the features that are in QtControls 1, and then partially which are not supported there, they can be got from the marketplace, for example, the tree view and calendar view. And also quick extras is partially covered by Controls 2. And if you happen to be using graphical effects, then you can use the Qt5 compatibility module that still has that graphical effects available in Qt6. But probably it's better to migrate also away from graphical effects and start using, for example, quick multi-effect. And then purchasing that has been removed, but we have examples how you can use the native APIs on the respective platforms. And then platform-specific things, they have been spread out into different modules, so they are there, but they have been relocated somewhere else. Or like in platform headers case, it's inside a namespace at the moment. So, but from the perspective of migrating, it shouldn't be that big thing. And then the rest of the modules, we don't have good support for those, so you should resort using third-party libraries if you want to use, for example, XML patterns or Gamepad and so on. But if you are using QtScript for doing scripting, then you could consider using Python, as it is a scripting language, so that could be something that you might take a look into. And then there is the Qt5 compatibility module. So this is only there to help you to migration to Qt6. It's not advised that you will continue using it, but it's the stepping stone to Qt6. So whenever you have done porting, you should also consider to get rid of this module in your code. So the module is there to contain a couple of the classes that were in Qt5, but have been removed in Qt6. So mostly they are string handling and SAX parsing for XML. And also the graphical effects are there. So then there is the module changes. They have some kind of little impact on your migration, although it should be quite straightforward. So there are some changes in QtCore that have been implicit changes that you need to take care of. And then Quick 3D, there is the OpenGL is not the default anymore. And then Quick Controls, they have the visual impact that if you haven't specifically specified the style that you are using, the native style will be used. And then otherwise, the porting should be quite straightforward. There are some relocation of the methods or API changes, but the change should be quite straightforward in your code. Shouldn't be that big thing to do. So then the core has a couple of changes that affect your migration. For example, the meta types, they have been stored at the moment at the compile time. So in practice, this means that if you had this forward declaration for your classes in your headers, you cannot use that anymore, but instead you have to include the actual class header to be able to compile. And also you don't necessarily need to declare meta type anymore in Qt6. So in your new code, you don't have to write this anymore, although you still need to register meta type. But you don't have to go on ripping out these declarations from your code. It's still there, but you don't need to explicitly write that. And then the bigger thing is the container changes. QList and QVector, they have been unified. So everything should work as before, but it might have an impact on the performance. So if you have accessing big data elements in your list container, it might be that the access becomes slower in Qt6 because the implementation behind has changed. And also there is a impact that iterators, they become invalid if you are modifying the container while you have the iterators accessed from the container. So there is an example that this lower example used to work in Qt5, but it doesn't really work anymore in Qt6. Instead, if you have modified the container, you need to take the iterator again from the container to actually get the updated version. And then the graphics, there's a couple of changes in Qt6. So the bigger change is the new graphics backend. So it's the rendering hardware interface, which means that this hides the native graphics backend from the users. And it means that on, for example, on Mac, you are using the Metal backend and then Linux Vulkan, OpenGL, and so on. But from the user perspective, it shouldn't be big changes. But the thing is that the OpenGL might not be the backend anymore in your applications. So you should not rely in your code that the OpenGL is not anymore the default, and you should not expect that OpenGL is available for your applications. So luckily, this does not have that big impact for your applications. So most quick applications, they will work without any changes. But if you happen to be using some advanced OpenGL related things in your code, like shaders and custom materials and so on, then you might do some steps to actually get around with these OpenGL specific things. But OpenGL still works. But then if you want to continue using explicitly OpenGL, then you need to set the OpenGL backend for your application. But then this, of course, requires that the platform where you are running your application has OpenGL support. And then some of the features are still actually specific to OpenGL. So, for example, widgets and data visualization, they are relying on OpenGL. So these are not utilizing the rendering hardware interface at the moment. But this will be worked on later on. So basically, if you have those advanced use cases, so you need to do some specific actions. And the big thing that you would need to probably do is to convert the shader code that has been OpenGL specific shader language. So you need to change that to Vulkan compatible shader language. So it should not be that big change or complicated change, but it's just manual work. And there is in documentation, there is a guide what you need to do. And then optionally, when you have done this conversion, you can convert your Vulkan compatible shader code into something that can be made native shader code in your specific platforms. And then if you happen to be using OpenGL specific APIs in your code, they have now been removed because it's not OpenGL, it's not always the backend. So you might need to do some changes in your code. For example, there is if you have got texture IDs, it's not anymore OpenGL texture ID, but you need to convert that ID into OpenGL specific ones. And if this graphics changes, have any visual impact probably in your application. So you need to check that, okay, if does your graphics really work as you intended them to work. So that is something you need to pay attention to. And then multimedia, there has been quite a lot of changes. So the target for when migrating to Qt6 was to make it easier to use. So the size of the framework code has been halved. So it's much less code there, so it's easier to maintain. And then there's only one backend for all multimedia in Qt6. So you don't have to go on using specific plugins for different audio and video. And then at the moment, QNX is not supported for multimedia. If you happen to be using QNX, then you have to wait. But also Pulse Audio and ALSA, they are not supported in Qt 6.2 at the moment. And if you are migrating, then you have to do some adaptation work. So in most parts, the changes are quite straightforward. The APIs are quite similar, shouldn't be big changes, except that they're in video capture and recording, you might need to do some more changes because the API have been changed quite a lot in that part. And Lars will have a talk about this in detail, which will explain what you actually need to do in more specific level. And then we don't have a support for the ALSA Pulse Audio at the moment. And depending on the need, this might be introduced later on. So if you have a need for this, you should contact us, and then we can decide and discuss what is the best approach for you. And also GStream pipelines or custom backends, they are not supported. And again, if you need to use these, please contact us and we can discuss what to do. And then last, if you are doing the migration, there are also help for you. The documentation is up to date for Qt6. So there is also porting guides available, and all the documentation is available on Qt6. And then you should use tooling, so you can use a Glazy to show you what are the potentially problematic places where you want to check and do changes in your code so that it works in Qt6. And then we also provide, in the Qt company, we provide workshops and then training on the Qt specific topics. And also we provide help on the migration if you have a complex application or system that you need to port to Qt6. You can contact us on those and we can see what we can do. Okay, that brings me to the end of my presentation. So if you have questions regarding this high-level migration overview, or you want otherwise to discuss about these topics, I will be available in the speakers lounge afterwards. Thank you.